Hi, this is Professor Bowen-Moore. I am going to show you the first practice here in InDesign. I'm going to call this the tutorial practice. It's going to give you some experience using just a few of the basic tools in InDesign and as it relates to images and type, and kind of give you a head start in practicing some of these things that you might use more frequently throughout the class and just in general. I brought up the checklist. So you will see the assignment sheet. This is basically the assignment sheet. Since I'm doing a video, you will follow and repeat what I do in the video. But I'm giving you a checklist here just so you know specifically what I'm looking for in your work. And also, there's a couple more things I want you to download before starting the practice. One is the Creative Thinking image. It is a high resolution TIFF. I went ahead and took the background out so it has a transparent background. And then also some demo text. I'm just going to give you the text to work with instead of you finding your own or using just placeholder text. This will act as the placeholder text that we're going to use for it. So I'm going to pull up the checklist and just kind of put it over to the side. And I've got my image over here, and I also have the demo text brought up with the PDF. I think when you click onto it from Blackboard, it goes into another tab online. You can go to File, Save As, or Export as a PDF onto your own computer, or you can probably copy and paste the text from that tab. But if you download it, you can definitely do that. So I am going to first, let's create our document in InDesign. So I'm going to open InDesign. This is kind of the visual of midway through. This is kind of my example before I showed you, but we're going to go to File, New. We're going to start a new print document in this case. And then I'm going to go ahead and label it as instructed. So remember, last name first, underscore, and then the project title. And so in this case, tutorial practice, if you want to do MP1 for minor project 1, you can do that as well. It really, that as long as I know it is the first tutorial practice, you're good. So I'll just do it this way. But definitely your last name first, and then the project title is the way to go. We're going to do that with all your digital files for projects will be labeled in that fashion. So that's just something to remember. I'm going to change this to inches. Picas is the general unit when dealing with print production. And we could change this to inches just by, based on the inches, we could always change it. It will convert automatically is my point. So if you don't know how to convert in picas to a certain size, you can punch in, let's say our width was 7 inches. I could put 7 and then double quotes to represent inches. And then when I click off of it, it's going to automatically convert that to picas. So we're doing 8.5 inches wide because this is a letter size. This is just 8.5 by 11. So I'm going to do that. So it'll go back to the picas, which in this case is 51 picas wide. Orientation vertical. We just need 1 page for this. I'm not really going to add any much of a grid to this, although you can if you would like to help align things. I'm going to leave the margins at an automatic or default 1/2 inch, which is 3 picas. And I am going to add a bleed, which is 1/8 of an inch is the industry standard, or 0.125 inches, or 9 points. So since we're in picas, I'm going to put it in 9 points. So the first number is picas, then P for points, which is the lower unit of a pica. This is all based on the measurements of typography. So I'm going to do that. And as you can see, we've got our page set up here. And I'm going to slide this over so we can go to the next thing on the checklist and make sure we're including everything. So we want to create an object, which is going to be our background color basically. And we're going to make it bleed off the page. That's why we created a bleed margin. So if we were actually printing this on a press, they would print on 9x12 paper and then cut it down to this 8.5x11 trim size. So we want any color going off the page to go to this bleed margin so that in theory or in practice, if they were trimming this, the color would bleed off the edge of the paper. So that's what the bleed margin is. It's really important in the printing process. So when we're designing for print, if we intend to have bleeding color or images, we have to create that margin. So I'm going to go over here to my object tool. So it has a little arrow here. That means there's more tools in this little shape box or object box. So when I click and hold, it'll pull it up. So I've got a polygon tool, ellipse, and a rectangle. I just need the rectangle tool for a background. And I'm going to go ahead and set it to these outside bleed margins, since I kind of wanted this color to bleed. Now, if I look at my control panel, I've got my fill and my stroke, and stroke is meaning outline. So if I click off of this object, you can see, if I zoom in, you can see it does have a black outline here. So that's why you can see that in the stroke box. So I'm going to turn that to none. And we are going to fill it. So I would just pick a color either in your swatch list and tone it down. These are pretty bright and, they almost hurt your eyes. If you want to choose your own color, just double click in the fill box and it'll pull up your color picker. So right now I'm in a cooler palette. And so I'm just going to choose something. It can be really any color, just don't make it too, what you want to be able to do is make it to where the text on top of it will show up nicely. So not too dark if you're using black text. I'm going to do kind of a gray blue here, and I might lighten it up just a little bit. I'm going to add this to my swatches. And this is, you can choose any color. But now when I click this, it's saved to my swatches here. And I can adjust the tint. So I'm going to make it just a little lighter, maybe 50% lighter. So this would be like adding white to this color, and it keeps its opacity. Now, if you wanted it transparent, your transparency is over here, which would make it more see-through. So we're just adjusting the tint here. We want the opacity. So now that we've created an object, now we can place an image, and that's the image that I provided. And so to place an image, we kind of go over here to this other tool that's right above the object tool. It's got the X going through it. That represents a graphic or image. So this is a frame tool. This is going to frame those things when we place them. So when we select that, now we can create a frame. Now the image may not be the exact dimensions of the frame that you create, and so we can work with that. So the bounding box here is blue. I'm over in my layers window. If you don't see that, you can go under window and layers, and it'll open that up and make it visible. But if all of your components are in the same layer, and you've got them stacked on top of one another, you may have to select certain ones and bring them forward if you need to access them. We're going to create some layers next, but we're going to keep this image. Oops. I'm switching back to my selection tool using the shortcut key, which is V. So you can create a new layer and put the frame in a new layer if you would like, but I have that next. So we're just going to go ahead and place the frame and the image as, with this as part of the background. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit because we're going to eventually put some type on top of that. And we are also putting some text below it. So I'm going to make this smaller, just a little bit. So we have plenty of room here for all of that. So I'm going to select the frame and I'm going to go, you can go to File, Place, or you can Command D, which is the shortcut. So I'm going to grab this TIFF, this image that's on my desktop, and I'm going to open it. And you can see it's much bigger than the frame here in terms of its original size. So if I double click, you can see the bounding box is kind of amber colored. You can see how big the image actually is. So we want to reduce that, but we want to scale this proportionally. So when we do scale this down, we want it to stay proportional in its length and width and not distort it or skew it in any way. We don't want that. So I'm gonna, you can use your 2 fingers on your trackpad to scale proportionally, or you can grab the corner and hold the Command Shift or Control Shift if you're on a PC, and click and drag it manually into the frame. And again, it may not be the exact proportions of the frame, as you see. Now that I zoom back in, if I double click, you can see the frame of the image itself is a little bit different than the frame. So in this case, what I usually do is just select the frame and bring it in to where the boundaries of that image are. I just keep it snug to the image without cropping it off. In this case, sometimes you want part of the image cropped off in the frame. It just depends. That's kind of why you have the capability of accessing them individually. The picture itself, and then the frame holding the picture, which is the blue bounding box here. Now, if I want to scale the whole thing, I can just select the frame, Command Shift, and I can scale it bigger or smaller, depending, but it scales proportionally, holding those shortcut keys down. So that's what I'm going to do. You can also kind of move it around, and you can see a magenta line pops up when it's centered on the page, not centered horizontally. And it's right, the bottom of the hands is sitting right on the horizontal center point. I just actually made it jump. There we go. So it does have some automatic pop-up guides that help you. The original versions of Adobe did not have that. So that's a really nice feature. All right, so we're creating our layers now. We're going to lock this layer 1. We're just going to do, I double clicked on that label in the layer window, and I'm just going to put background and image. And so to lock it, this empty spot just to the left, just click that and it'll lock that layer. The eye toggle makes that layer visible or invisible. So if I click that, it's going to make this layer invisible. So it's not doing away with it or deleting it. It's just making it not visible for the moment. And then this little plus sign is to create a new layer. So I'm going to create a new layer. It'll have a different color code. So the bounding boxes will be red in this layer. You can also click the hamburger stack in the upper right corner and start a new layer that way as well. So this is going to be the type. And I just want you to know about layers. I'm not picky about how you organize layers in your layouts and in your documents, but I want you to know how it works and how it can be helpful in organizing, especially if you have multiple elements on the page and you're layering them on top of one another. So our next is going to be placing our copy. So I'm going to go to the demo text. So that's the other thing that you downloaded for the assignment. This is the demo text we're using to put in place. So I'm just going to select this in the PDF and copy it, Command C or Control C. And then I'm going to create a text box. I'm going to go to my type tool. It's also got multiple type tools. It's got the regular type tool and then a type on a path. We're going to use both for this assignment, but we're going to start with the regular type tool here. And I'm just going to create a text box. I'm just going to go from margin to margin here. And I'm going to Command V or paste my text, or Control V for PC. And you can see it already has a typeface. It's Minion Pro. Minion Pro is the default typeface for Adobe. So when you're first putting something in place, as far as copy or any type of text, it's going to automatically, until you change it, it's automatically going to put it in Minion Pro. In word processing programs like Word, it'll be like Times or Times New Roman. So those are good handy typefaces, but you never want to use those for, things in this class. We never want to resort to just default. Most of the things that we do in this class will be custom, so and novel and new. So we want to avoid default settings most of the time. So we've got parts of this structure of the type. In other words, there's not really any visual hierarchy here, and there's no way to tell what type of information is more important than the other and how we need to read it properly as intended. So we want to adjust some of these things in the text. And the first thing I'm going to do is adjust the hyphenation. So it's going to automatically hyphenate, especially if I brought this column in just a little bit. So as you can see, it's automatically hyphenating these words on the right. And we don't want that to happen. So I'm going to go into my paragraph window. If you don't see that visible, again, go up to window, and anything dealing with type is going to be under type and table. So we can open our paragraph window and character window for that matter. I'm going to slide this off and put it in the same tab or in the same box as my paragraph window. You'll also see those same features when we're in the type tool up here in the control panel. So I've got the object selected here, which is the text box itself. And then if I double click inside this, I access the type inside the text box. So I'm going to select all, Command A or Control A, and then I'm going to go into the paragraph window, and I'm just going to deselect this hyphenate box. And that's going to keep it from auto hyphenating the text. And if it is a hyphenated word, it will recognize that and hyphenate it anyway. So I'm going to click back over here into the area. And now we want to get our, we want to choose our typeface. We want to adjust the leading and the size of the type. So I'm going to select all again, and I'm going to pick something up here that's a little different than the default. So I'm just going to choose, I do want a sans serif or a typeface that is not real ornate, or that doesn't have a lot of decorative qualities. I want it pretty easy to read since it's smaller type. So I'm going to just choose this Acumen variable. It also offers me multiple types of styles here underneath. So I'm just going to choose the regular. But as you can see, this typeface is a little bigger than Minion Pro. It's running out of my text box. If you see this little plus sign, that means there's text in this box that's not really visible. So like if I were to extend this box, it would show that leftover type. And it looks to be like one sentence here that's going outside the box. But I'm going to make it a little smaller than 12 points too. So I'm just going to reduce the size. Let's go down to like 10 points. And you can even do fractions of a point. We could do 10.5 or 10.25. So you can go down to fractions of a point up here as well and really customize it. I'm going to adjust the general leading here, but I'm going to probably adjust the leading underneath the headers a little bit differently, and where it's indenting. We're going to indent these items down here with the guidelines. So we might adjust the leading more later, but I'm just going to select all for now and just adjust I'll just go to 13.5, just 2 points, or 3 points bigger. So it'll be a little bit easier to read. And I'm going to adjust the type treatment. So these headers, I want them to be a little bolder. I want them to be a little bigger. And here's the grading standards. So same, I'm going to do those exactly the same. So this one I did 14 points. So this one I'm doing 14 points. So the same parts of the structure, you always want to be consistent. And I'm going to separate the grading standards just a little bit. So I'm going to up the leading on that one to bring it down just a hair, maybe 22 points there. And I want to separate each of these items just a little bit. So where these paragraphs change, I want those to be a little spaced out. So I'm going to do those about 16 points. So they're not right on top of each other. Same here. I'm going to do these 16 down here. And I'm going to start the guidelines at 16 underneath. Okay. And now we are ready for our custom tabs or indentions here. Now we can select all and indent using the paragraph window. For instance, second from the left is indenting the first item of each paragraph. So as you can see, as I do that, you can see it moving over. But it's doing every line. So if I just want each part I can just select that sentence or that paragraph. But if I do that, I'm assigning it the same exact number, which is 8 points in this case. Generally, you want it to stay under the amount of points of the size. So my indentions here would need to be less than 10.5 points to be effective. So you can indent them as well. So there's options you can do with the indentions. I'm just going to do away with it all because we separated those sections, but I just wanted to show you that. So what we're going to indent is the guidelines, and it's a different type of indentation. It's actually creating a custom tab to indent a whole section the same in another way. So what I just showed you would be good for paragraphs and sections of a story. If you have listed items that you're indenting, this is the best way to do it. Like on a resume where you're listing your responsibilities or different things like that, skills. This is how you want to create those indentions. So what we want to do here is we're going to select all the copy just to make it easy. And I'm going to go up to type, tabs, and it pulls up our tab window, and it's going to automatically align with the width of our text box here. If we move our layout around and it disaligns with it, we can click this little magnet here and it'll automatically snap back. So what we're going to do here, the reason I assigned every line of type here, just selected all, is because when I do create this tab, this custom indentation, it'll apply to every line of type. I could also just select this right here. That would be fine too, because we're really just aligning or indenting this section right here. So either way, it just makes it easy. Either way you do it. So I'm going to click on this gray bar above the ruler, and you can see it has a vertical line showing me where it's indenting. So I'm just going to indent a little ways, not too far, but I want it to go in just a little bit. So I'm going to just select 1/4 of an inch there. I think that, or maybe that's 3/8 of an inch. But if you're not happy with where that's going, you can always slide it or select the arrow and slide it again. But I'm just going to choose that point. And then when I click back in my box and hit the tab key, it automatically goes to the tab I just created. So all I have to do is just put my cursor in front and then click the tab key, and there we have it. So for lists and things like that, that's the best way to do it. So because you have different types, you have center alignment, right alignment. We just did left alignment. So the left side is aligning where we set that tab. The last option here is align to decimal. So like if you were doing menu items or things that have a decimal in it, it would align the decimals vertically in a row. So that's how you create custom tabs. Even if you get rid of this box, they're still assigned, and that's the indentation. So the last thing we want to do in terms of type treatment is create a type on a path. So we're going to create a title up here that says creative visual thinking. So I'm going to create a path first. So if we use the type on a path, you have to create the path. Now I can do this manually with the pencil tool and just draw it manually. I kind of just want it to arch over this globe here. Or I can just use the ellipse tool, which would be easier. So when I drag this out, it's got a stroke weight on it. I'm going to leave that on for now, just so we can see it. So I'm going to select the selection tool. I'm going to move it around to center this path. We're eventually going to make it invisible. We just need it right now to create the arch where we want the type to be written or set. So we're also keeping all of our type within the text margins here. This 1/2 inch magenta line here. That represents our border where our type should be inside of that. So now I can go to my type on a path tool, and I'm going to click. As you can see, when I scroll over this line, it has a little plus that pops up. That means it's ready to type on a path. So I'm going to click right there, and I'm going to put creative visual thinking. And this acts just like a regular type. All the tools apply here, and you can see when I'm in the type tool, you can see my character formatting menu items in my control panel. It's the same items that are here in the character formatting window on the right side of my interface. And then paragraph is right here underneath. So I can click between the two here, and I can click between the two over here in my window formatting. So either location, it's the same tools. So I'm going to double click to access the type. And I am going to pick a serif typeface for this bigger type. In other words, it's got the little notches on it. Jubilat is a good one to use because it's thick and is easily readable at that bigger size. So I'm going to make it pretty big here. And we'll center this type in just a moment. I'm going to make it like 24 points. You can make it as big as you like, as long as it stays within the text margin line at the top. So to center this, you don't have to use your space bar. So when I select this object, which is the path that it's on, you'll see 2 bars. If I scroll over this one, it's got an arrow to the left. If I scroll over this one, it's an arrow to the right. That's right. That's representing the beginning and end of that path. So I can slide this forward. I can slide this back. But it basically can go all the way around this path up to this point. So I can put this further back if I need to, if I move that other bar. So this you just have to eyeball. I'm looking kind of where the distance is here from the fingers. So this looks pretty close right here. So I think that'll work. You also have options if I were to go up to object. Type on a path options. It would give me options for to flip it to, different types, distance between that and the baseline or where the line is there, whether I want it on the top or whether I want it on the bottom of that or centered. And that's along this path horizontally. I could also align it with the descender so that my descender is above it. Ascender would be below the line. So you have options there, centered on the line. I just have it on the baseline. So that's the automatic, and it works most of the time. So we're just going to keep it at that. Click OK. And now I can get rid of the stroke weight to make that invisible. So it looks like it's just floating on that arch. So to see a print view of this, all you have to do is click W, and that'll show you, like if we were printing this out, this is what it would look like. So that's pretty much all the type treatment that we want to do. You placed an image, you've gone through the checklist here. Now we need to get it ready for submitting. So I'm going to package all this. So I've got in my links window, I've got the TIFF, and that's the image I placed here. I've got this Jubilat typeface. I've got this Acumen variable typeface. So when I package, it's including all of these elements that I used in my document automatically. So that's a command in InDesign. So all of your finished InDesign work will go through this packaging process. It's really important. That way, when I open your package folder, I can see everything that you placed in your document. So I'm going to go to File, Package. It's towards the bottom. And it'll give you a series of windows here. I'm going to click Package here. It's going to ask me to save this first. So that's fine. I'm just going to save it to my desktop. And it's automatically going to save your folder the same as what you have as the label of what you've saved it as originally. That's why I encourage you to save it and label it as instructed from the beginning, so you don't have to worry about inconsistent labeling, which will lead to deductions. So I'm going to save this first. And that's just saving it as an INDD file, which is a workable InDesign file that's editable. So now it's ready to save it as a package. Save it as a folder. So that folder is going to include all those things that I mentioned, and I'll show you in just a second. I'm also going to save that to my desktop. I'm including an IDML and a PDF that's printable. So it's going to tell me, basically, this is no big deal, but it's just warning you if you have any downloaded fonts, make sure you're not infringing on any license agreement. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this. So here is my packaged folder. And when I open it, I've got my INDD, which I just saved, which is another version of it. If I add this, it's going to just ask me to replace it, which is fine. It's the same document. That's my workable document that I'm working on in InDesign at the moment. You'll also see an IDML, which is compatible with older versions of Adobe. So if I were working on last year's Adobe versions, I would have to open your IDML if you're on the newer version. So that's one specific reason that you need to package. The PDF, if we were printing these for class, you would print from your PDF version. So you would pull up the PDF and print from that. And I have document folders here, one's for fonts, one's for links. So in the link, in the fonts folder, you see the Acumen variable. The Jubilat is actually an InDesign font, so it is automatically included. However, this Acumen is an OTF file, which means that at some point I downloaded that onto my computer from an outside source of Adobe. So that is going to be included in the document font. So if I were to open this, if this were your work and I were to open this and I didn't have that font and it wasn't part of Adobe, I would need to look in your package folder to download it in order to view it in your document. The links folder, you can see we've got the image here. So I hope this all makes sense on the reason we package. It's really important that you understand this as a concept and as a practice. So once we double check, we've got everything we used in our document. So now we have it saved. We have it packaged to a folder, and now we're going to compress this folder to a zip. So I'm going to right click or control click, and I'm going to compress, and it's going to give me a zip file. So what that does is it compresses all of those individual components in the folder into one big file. So it's going to treat it like a file, not a folder. So it's easier to email, it's easier to upload to Box, which is going to be required, and just all around easier to travel anywhere on your computer or someone else's. So the zip is what you will turn in. So if I open Box, you would go to your section. So I'm going to use Web 1 as an example. And I have this folder in the minor folder, minor project folder. So you will, you can either open this, you can either upload, use the upload option, in which case you would upload as a file, not a folder. So you would upload the zip as a file. Or you can click and drag the zip into the folder, which works just as well. And you can see it's working. It may take just a moment because we have a high resolution image in there. So you can see when I upload it, you can see that it is a zip file. You can see the little zipper. And you won't be able to preview it at this point. You will only be able to upload and view this, which if I click on it, you would only be able to view your PDF if it even allowed you to do that, which it may not. So make sure you double check everything before you upload. You won't be able to download it either. So something to know about Box also when you upload your work. So if this were labeled incorrectly, I would need to go back to InDesign and repackage it labeled correctly. You can't just change it here, because when I download it, it's going to go back to the original file. So make sure you always label your files correctly and as instructed, to avoid deductions there. That's a big one, even though it seems minor. So this is labeled correctly. If I had to make any edits to this, I would just edit it, resave it, and upload it again as the same name if it's correct. It will replace your original one. And I would be able to, it wouldn't be multiple files in here, which would cause confusion possibly. So that's just something to remember. But that's how you finish packaging your work and uploading it to Box for grading. So y'all are not, as far as students, are not listed as editors. So you will only be able to upload and view. So you can't download it or delete or anything like that. So if you have any questions about the project, let me know. But that's the first tutorial practice. And good luck, and I look forward to seeing your work. Thank you.